Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily. It is a Thursday, and we are jam-packed today on this Thursday of the program. We've got Tim Fitzgerald joining us a little bit earlier. He'll actually be with us next segment to talk K-State, our K-State insider of GoPowerCat.com. We'll have our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, on with us in this hour as well. Your calls to the IHOP hotline, 869-1240, which is, of course, brought to you by IHOP, where guests can enjoy the new strawberry cheesecake waffle, a golden brown Belgian waffle topped with creamy cheesecake mousse and fresh strawberries. Glad to be here with you. We've got Thursday night football. We've got both the NLCS and ALCS continuing. I hate baseball today because the Rangers lost to the Astros last night. We'll get into that here off the top a little bit. We'll get you ready and begin to get you ready for that Chiefs-Chargers game this weekend. All kinds of good stuff coming for you. We've got hockey and HDO giveaways. Tommy, how are you?
I'm doing okay. You hanging in there. I feel bad for you.
I hate baseball.
Been thinking about you for the last few hours. I know that was a rough game. You know, the Rangers did make it a game, though, right? Like
They did.
It was a blowout for a while, and then they started coming back.
Let's go there. So I anticipated this possibility with Max Scherzer coming back. I thought he would have a shorter leash. I wish he would have. I thought he should have been yanked after 3 runs. He clearly didn't have it. And I know he was wanting to battle and get in there, but they can't afford that. And then I thought that, they made a couple of bullpen decisions late that I wasn't totally comfortable with. Bruce Bochy has been a master this postseason up until this game with his pitching decisions. Here's the thing, and I am scared to death of this series, up 2-1. It was so critical for the Rangers to get up 2-0 because there was a high likelihood of what happened last night happening, right? That 1, Houston's offense wakes up. 2, that Scherzer, after injury, first time he's pitching, has some struggles. Like everything that happened last night, and by the way, Houston is a much better, for whatever reason, road playoff team than they are at home. All of those things made last night pretty likely. So it happened. And now how do they bounce back? And this becomes a pretty critical game, I think, for the Rangers. Because now you're talking about going back up against Verlander again. They'll go Andrew Heaney tonight, it looks like, and the Astros are throwing a guy who struggled a little bit. So I think things would still favor the Rangers in the series, but we've all seen this song and dance with Houston before. You can't let them stay alive. They've got the ability offensively just to pile on real quick and in a hurry, and the Rangers have a terrible bullpen. I mean, that's the reality of this thing.
Can you go so far to say that game number 4 is a must-win game for the Rangers? I mean, if the series gets evened up at 2 games apiece, I mean, that's vastly different than the Rangers going up 3-1.
Sure it is. Here's why I wouldn't say that. I don't think there's any outcome in this series that will be, all right, it's over until one of the teams win 4 games, because the Rangers are so streaky. And the one thing that does give you some hope for the Rangers last night is it wasn't a game where they didn't score any runs. Like they just went totally blank. No, they kept in it and gave you hope that, okay, the offense isn't going to go through one of those stretches that it's gone through this year. And the other thing is Jordan Montgomery and Nathan Eovaldi have been nails, 80% of the time this postseason. They're both going to pitch again in this series, at least one time. So that also makes you think, okay, even if it goes 2-2, you've still got those two, right? No matter what happens here, the Rangers will have those 2 to pitch again. And so that gives you hope. No matter, even if they're down 3-2, you'd still have those 2 to pitch again. So, I think that goes both ways, by the way. If you're Houston, no matter what it is, you feel good because you know that you're going to get Verlander again, and probably based on last night, you would see a second dose of Christian Javier. So, I think both teams, I think it's just going to have to play itself out. I've thought this was going to be a long series the whole way through. I mean, I certainly like the Rangers' chances more if they go up 3-1 than 2-2. I mean, that's just math, but it's a big one tonight. It is. I do not want Houston to catch momentum here.
It's going to be really interesting also if the Rangers can pull off the series, get to the World Series, how in the world they handle Max Scherzer. Do you trust him enough to put him out there in the World Series after what we saw in Game 3 last night?
So the mistake I thought they made last night was not going to Max Scherzer in Game 3. I had no issue with that, and they had the flexibility to do it, but he should have had a shorter leash. They have 3 starters, Dane Dunning, Heaney, who you'll see tonight, and John Gray, who you saw a bit of last night. Actually, they have 4, and Martin Perez. They have all the ability in the world to put him on a short leash. So, yeah, let's see if he can ramp up to the point where he can go in the World Series. I've got no problem with that. They should have just not let him get knocked around for 5 runs last night. They should have pulled him after 3. And then, it doesn't feel as daunting all the way back through. But we'll see. That was probably, outside of Verlander, the last Astros pitcher I'd want to see. So now the Rangers offense just needs to come back and help out, and I'll just be a hot mess. And we'll talk to Chelsea Messenger about it in a little bit and see if there's any betting angles on it. But I'm not gonna survive this series, Tommy. I'm not emotionally. It's too much to bear. Woe is me, right? Royals fans are like,
feel bad for you, man.
Get out of here. Like, nobody wants to hear that. But just bear with me for a second. All right, we'll talk some K-State football. What in the world do we do at quarterback? Tim Fitzgerald, K-State insider from GoPowerCat.com, joins us next on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily. Jed's tracking down Tim for us. Glad to be here. By the way, it's Thursday Night Football. Primetime NFL games from Westwood One available live for free right here on KFH and on the Odyssey app. You can tune in tonight for Thursday Night Football. Jacksonville, New Orleans on KFH, or simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at kickoff. Pre-game coverage there begins at 6:30. Looking forward to that one. I think it'll be a pretty good Thursday Night Football game. A couple of notes here for the Chiefs, Tommy, while we get fixed connected. Mecole Hardman is coming back, and probably, it sounds like Frank Clark, there's a high likelihood. He, I believe, is getting a physical in Kansas City Friday, tomorrow. But for sure, we know that Mecole Hardman is back. And, look, I don't think Mecole Hardman's going to come in and all of a sudden do more than he did before. He left for the Jets in the first place. But what I think he can do is provide a little depth for Justin Watson being out and give the Chiefs maybe a punt returner that they can count on a little bit here. So I think a couple of things that he can help. I mean, it cost them nothing. They basically swapped a sixth-round pick for a seventh-round pick. But, experience in the room is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I remember Dave Tobe saying, as far as punt returning was concerned, that the closest player that he can compare to Mecole Hardman was Devin Hester. And we know how great Devin Hester was as a returner. So Dave Tobe, the special teams coach for the Chiefs, has always thought highly of Hardman as a punt returner. So that, definitely I think will be a piece of his role in Kansas City. And, the depth part, I get it. The trust factor with Mahomes, I get it. It's all right there. I think that more than anything, the trade for Mecole Hardman and then, potentially a signing of Frank Clark, that tells you all you need to know about what the Chiefs are wanting to do or planning to do at the trade deadline, which is absolutely nothing. Like, I think that it's after this, I think they're probably done. They're not going to go out and try to make another high profile trade for a wide receiver. They have made their bed with Mecole Hardman and the current wide receivers they have. So I don't anticipate seeing really any more moves before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I don't either, because I don't think they have a lot of financial flexibility and capability to do that either. But it is good to see, them not satisfied. Maybe that sends a message to the other guys. I don't want to overthink it and say, well, this is a move that, they made because they don't have any confidence in the young receivers that they have. I don't think that's the case. I think it was an opportunity to get a guy who's familiar with the system, help them on special teams, and provide depth. And the depth probably matters more than it ever has, because we know that they are, dependent on all of these guys in small amounts. Isn't it a little bit strange too that Hardman is kind of like, if we had to compare him and think about roles, it's sort of what Kadarius Toney is doing, right? And Toney has been just a non-factor at all, and which is just remarkable considering the expectation for him coming in. Like, he has been nothing.
Yeah, and I know that historically, in the time that Mecole Hardman played for Kansas City, they drew up, some design plays for him, some special packages, things like that, jet sweeps. I know he was, did that quite a bit. I would imagine I saw somebody post on social media after the trade was completed that that now we know basically exactly what Andy Reid is going to want to do on every 4th and short opportunity that's there, and that's run a jet sweep with Mecole Hardman. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen every single time, but man, he loves giving him the ball on jet sweeps. At least he has historically, and so it wouldn't surprise me if we start to see a lot more of those play calls and the play design come into play with Mecole Hardman back on the roster.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be a big part of the offense. Maybe he will be. I just like what I don't want to do is get everybody get overexcited. Like, even if Mecole Hardman is what he was before he left, it's not a massive role, right? Like, he's not going to be more than he was before he left. They waited for him to become more than that for 3 or 4 years. It never happened. So I don't think it's going to happen now, and the Jets could find no use for him. So let's just.
But you know what? I mean, I think that there's a little bit of revisionist history going on here a little bit, because last season, before he got injured, he was pretty productive for the Chiefs. Like, and I know that injury kept him out a good portion of the games, and throughout the playoffs, he was back for the Super Bowl in a limited role last year. But before he went down with that injury, they were building his role up in that Chiefs offense. And, so I don't know what the issue was with the Jets. I don't know if his skill set didn't fit or exactly what was going on there. But I think that he'll be able to come in and, he's not going to light the world on fire, but he can absolutely serve, I think, a fairly valuable role for this team, moving forward.
In 2021, his best year with the Chiefs, he had just under 700 yards, 60 catches, and a couple of touchdowns. So we'll see. But that move has been made. All right. Now, as we've figured out our phone issue, we switch gears. Let's talk a little K-State football. Here's our K-State insider, Tim Fitzgerald.
He's got all the insight on what you want to know and maybe some of what you don't want to know. Here's K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
All right, and we welcome in Fitz here, GoPowerCat.com, at Life of Fitz on social media, joining us a little earlier than normal. Fitz, let's jump right into it. If Tim Fitzgerald gets to make the decision at quarterback, what is the decision that you would make?
Oh, I get to make the decision. I'm the starting quarterback.
There you go.
I'd probably be the conservative old man and go with Will Howard and do basically the same thing I did at Texas Tech, and I think that's what Chris Kleiman and Colin Klein are going to do. They're going to continue to explore this 2 quarterback situation while they're at home. And you know what? You need kind of more proof of life, maybe with Avery to make sure he can replicate this when defenses start changing how they approach him and try to bring him on gently instead of throwing him in the pool. I think Will Howard probably starts these next 2 games for sure at home.
Tim, at its surface, I don't have much of an issue with them exploring the possibility of going potentially back and forth between Will and Avery and all of that. But I do also wonder, if you get into it, I mean, there are so many different factors that come into ultimately the most important position on the field at the quarterback position, where, there's a confidence factor with the other players, not only just the playbook, but just the way that person leads the offense. Knowing all of that, I mean, is there any kind of risk with the team bouncing back and forth between 2 quarterbacks when, I think maybe conventional wisdom would say commit to one and move forward?
Yeah, of course there's a risk. I always come back to the old adage, you got to get your best athletes on the field. So trying to find a way to include Avery makes sense from that respect. Both quarterbacks are respected by their teammates. There's no division about this. That's quite what happens is you get sides. Well, I want this guy and this guy. It's not happening at all at Kansas State. In fact, they're supportive of both. But the odd thing here, or the notable thing, is that last year Adrian Martinez goes out with injury. They put in Will Howard, who seems to bring a better tempo and rhythm. The offense seems to move better. 1 year later, all of a sudden, Will Howard's offense is the one that doesn't seem to have the tempo and rhythm, and they bring in Avery Johnson, and it takes off. So it's very interesting to me how the roles are reversed for Will Howard. But I still think he's got some great football ahead of him, and I won't be surprised if he comes out Saturday and has a big Will Howard game. We'll see how it all plays out, but I think no matter what, they need to figure out how to use Avery. Whether it's as quarterback or out on the field with Will Howard, so they can, build some things off of the 2 quarterback system, much like KU has done at times.
Well, look, I mean, I think they deserve credit. In the Oklahoma State game, when Oklahoma State was giving up the run to the quarterback, they let Will Howard do that. They probably shouldn't have. Texas Tech defended them the same way. They adjusted. They let Avery Johnson tear them apart in that role. I think that it is an opportunity here where you can simply see what the defense is doing. If they're playing up in the box to stop Avery Johnson, you can have Will Howard push the ball down the field. If they do the opposite and they keep, allowing quarterbacks to run, you just slide Avery Johnson in there. So I think it's an advantage for now because the opposing defense is going to have such a hard time game planning for them. But at some point on the flip side of that too, Tim, we do need to see Avery push it downfield a little bit. Let's see if he's got that in the bag of tricks.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's what they need to find out this week with TCU and next Saturday morning with Houston. Can Avery expand his, playmaking ability into the deep passing game, because he did that a little bit in the SEMO game, but it was kind of mop-up duty. Let's see it against a TCU defense that's known to be, pretty good. I'm actually kind of excited to see how they balance this, use the two guys, what keeps someone on the field, what keeps someone off the field, and I think this is going to be an exciting process. But there's no denying Avery Johnson is electric, and he just needs some more playing time. And I wish they honestly had started from the Missouri game on, trying to find him playing time. He should have played against UCF. He didn't. He should have played against Oklahoma State. He didn't. They put him out there against Texas Tech, and he just lights it up. So we'll see what it looks like on Saturday.
We talked about it last week, Fitz, about the importance of, in back-to-back road games, and after you go to Stillwater and you lose, how important it is to follow that up with a great showing in Lubbock. And that's exactly what the Wildcats did. They still control their own destiny. I think that from a culture standpoint and all of that, we know, and Chris Kleiman mentioned it after they lost to Missouri about not letting Mizzou beat them twice, probably the same adage after the Oklahoma State game. So now that the momentum has swung back on the side of the Wildcats, do you feel like there's, they're moving more in a positive direction after that disappointing loss to Stillwater?
Well, I got to tell you, every week in this conference is self-contained. You really don't know what you're going to get when you connect two different teams together. If you're going to get, an exciting performance from the team that has been awful, or vice versa. We've seen Oklahoma State resurrect itself. TCU and Kansas State looked awful 2 weeks ago, and boom, they had great games. So yeah, you have to go out each game and be absolutely ready for whatever comes along, because you don't know how the opponent's going to react to you and match up with you exactly in game time, real time. So yeah, just go out there and do your thing and hope it's enough to get on to the next week where you got to do it again. This conference is brutal.
Let's be real about the prospects in this season. I think Avery Johnson gives a renewed excitement, certainly after last week. They do control their own destiny to get into the Big 12 championship game. Is this defense, though, good enough for them to be able to do that?
It's a valid point, Pickup. It really is, because the injuries are beginning to really chip away at this defense, and trying to get more guys out there healthy would be great. But you're already down to a true freshman middle linebacker in Austin Romaine, and now he's playing with a broken hand or broken wrist that was suffered in his first start at Oklahoma State. So they're pretty beat up in the middle of that defense. And then you get out to corner and they're trying to get their guys back. So it's kind of a mess right now on that defensive side of the ball, but they're going to have to get better pressure with just their front guys. It was an epic failure at Oklahoma State. They tried to drop back in coverage and get some pass rush. They got almost none. And they're going to have to find a way to generate more of a pressure on what we expect to be a freshman quarterback for TCU.
Yeah, this TCU team is really interesting. They've kind of went through their growing pains early on in the season. Everybody knows the way they kicked off the season with the loss to Colorado, but they've kind of found their way a little bit as of late. A fairly decisive win against BYU last weekend. You mentioned the young quarterback that TCU has. What do they do well, and what are some areas that the Wildcats can look to exploit this weekend?
Well, TCU's kind of been a little bit hit and miss. One of the things they haven't given up a lot of in recent history is quarterback run, so that's intriguing. I think Iowa State had some success with it maybe, but you're going to have to explore what actually works. I think getting the ball downfield is probably the better idea, in terms of just raw schematics, not athletic playmaking ability. So this really is a great test for Avery. I mean, this defense is the most adept, I think, maybe on the K-State schedule, at least in the near future, of stopping him. They're kind of designed to do that. So if he can operate against TCU, which is traditionally a very good and physical defense, then I think we're going to see some exciting things for him going forward, because you can't keep him off the field at that point.
Fitz, let's look around the league a little bit. It's sort of flipped upside down as to what we thought it would be. Are we? Do you still? I mean, is it the same characters here that you thought it would be in the beginning? Has anybody else you think moved into that spot? Is Iowa State for real at all? Oklahoma State is heating up to some degree. West Virginia, like the three teams we probably thought State, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, all of a sudden are all in the scenario where they sort of control their own destiny.
It's been crazy. How they got here is kind of amazing to me. That we've got so many teams that we expected were down, like Iowa State, TCU, and Oklahoma State, and all of a sudden they're all playing better football. It's absolutely, this conference is insane. I don't know how many coaches are reinventing their teams as the process goes, but we're seeing it. We thought this would be an easy win for K-State, and then they go out and do what we've seen over the last 2 weeks with K-State and TCU, and you get a little more confused about the matchup. Look, we all expect them to beat Houston in a week, but what if they actually play Texas competitively, even though the line is like 23.5 points? So, that's the beauty of college football. You can just start playing better. And we're going to find out a little bit about Oklahoma State when they go to West Virginia this weekend. So it's an entertaining brand of football. There's no doubt about it.
All right, we come up. It's another night game Saturday. Fitz, what do you guys have coming up for us at GoPowerCat.com?
Well, we just released our pregame podcast, and we tried doing it in 3 segments this week on YouTube. If you listen on the audio version, you'll just hear the 1 hour-long show, but we chopped this up into like 3 20-minute-ish segments on YouTube. So you can go check that out. My daily delivery's up. We've got our game preview stuff rolling out all day long at GoPowerCat, including our Edge, that is the nuts and bolts preview of how the two teams match up. That should be up on the site now. There's a lot of stuff going. We had, I think, 10 stories on Monday and 10 stories on Wednesday at the site. So you got to keep following along because we're moving a lot of information across.
All right. Tim Fitzgerald, publisher, GoPowerCat.com. You can follow him on social media at Life of Fitz. Enjoy the game this weekend and buckle up. It may be Avery Johnson season. We'll see how it plays out, Fitz. Be good. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, boys.
There goes Tim Fitzgerald. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will bring in our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, for her weekly visit. What do we think about some of the lines this weekend? College, NFL, maybe some playoff baseball to look into tonight. We'll get into all of it with Chelsea next.
And 1240 KFH.
Oh, okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Glad to be with you on the program today. Joining us now, our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger.
The line is the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Tip podcast for more of Chelsea Messenger analysis. Just search BetMGM wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, and we welcome in Chelsea. Chelsea, how are you this morning?
Hey, doing well. We're about to be in the sports equinox where we have football, we have postseason baseball, basketball's coming up. I'm seeing preseason NBA on my timeline. So it feels like the best time of year for sports.
It's right there. I'm with you. We've got a ton of football to talk about, but we have both championship series with games today. Let's start there. I'm on an emotional roller coaster right now with my Rangers, but from a betting perspective here, Chelsea, 2 games today. Is there anything we need to be paying attention to from a betting perspective with these two today? I'll tell you that 9.5 and Rangers Astros, both starting pitchers have, around a 5 ERA today. Maybe the over there is a play. What have you got on your plate?
I don't have anything official in that Rangers and Astros game just because I feel like Andrew Heaney is a very volatile starter. He's either going to strike out like 12 and be amazing or give up like a 7 spot. Just feels like he's a volatile pitcher that I don't really want to bet on. But I would agree with you. I think you would dump it down to 9 and lay a little bit more juice just in case, you get a push if it lands on 9 and still hit the over. Last night, if you were watching that game, it felt like even the balls that were outs were fly outs at the warning track. So both teams really seeing the ball well, and it's not going to get lower scoring, I think, as we get to the starters who are further down the rotation. And also once you start seeing the same relievers over and over and over again. So I would really rely more heavily on the hitters here, but I think the better play is probably in the Phillies and Diamondbacks game. I'm going to go with an outs prop for Ranger Suarez. He's the starter for the Phillies tonight against the Diamondbacks. Outs props, which means how long a pitcher is going to pitch in a game, are very situational, based on the postseason, really based on the urgency. The Phillies don't have a ton of urgency right now, 2-game series lead, 7-game series, and also they've got 3 games in a row here and a bullpen game on deck in game 4. So do they really want to burn a bunch of relievers in this game? Probably not. Also, Ranger Suarez is expected to go deeper in this game. They've even said that as much. The manager has talked about it. And also, Ranger Suarez has been great in the postseason. He's already thrown 8 2/3 innings of 1-run ball against a potent Braves lineup, and in his career, a perfect 3-0 with a 1.16 ERA. So I will go with Ranger Suarez over his outs prop of 14.5. That means he needs to pitch at least 5 innings. I think he can do it.
The Phillies are just absolutely on fire, and I hate saying that. I can't stand the Phillies. I'm not a Phillies guy at all, but they played lights out. The Diamondbacks are in a big-time hole right now, even though they're back at home for the game this afternoon. I almost feel like, and I know that player props, can be dangerous depending on which direction you want to go, but I almost feel like, maybe a lock is Kyle Schwarber to hit another home run. I mean, this guy has been on fire this series and even before. And looking at the odds, I mean, he's plus 240 to hit a home run. He's plus 500 to hit the first home run of the game. Is that something that you feel like, with knowing how automatic he's been lately, that could be a decent player prop?
I don't think those odds are long enough for a home run. The fact that the books have caught on, plus 240 to hit a home run is wild to me. I think there are better plays in this game. I think you're right. Like, one of the Bash brothers is going to hit a home run, whether it's Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Nick Castellanos. Like, they have so many good home run hitters that I think if you trust their offense, maybe you just take them on the money line. They're only minus 135 to win the game. They've got the better bullpen, a bullpen ERA under 2. And plus, I don't see that lineup going cold just because they go on the road. I think that is the main complaint for taking the Phillies today, just because, Phillies playing at home, absolute wagon. Now they have to go to the desert. But do we really see Bryce Harper and all of those guys just immediately turning back into pumpkins just because they go on the road? I don't think so. These are veteran players. So I think, yes, Kyle Schwarber, there's a good chance that he hits a home run. But I just think at those odds, it's not really worth it to me.
All right, we've got Thursday Night Football here. Chelsea Messenger, our betting insider, joining us. Jags, Saints. I think this should be a pretty good game. How are we attacking this one? The Jags have been red hot. The Saints have been okay defensively. Derek Carr maybe grooving here. They get Kamara back. What are you looking at tonight?
It's hard to tell because we don't know what's going on with Trevor Lawrence. He's questionable. It sounds like he's probably going to play, but until I know for sure, it feels like I probably shouldn't make a play on a side in this game. But I do think there is a good prop here. I'm going to go Alvin Kamara over his receiving prop of 30.5 for minus 115. From the jump, the matchup on paper, playing a receiving prop for whoever the running back is that the Jags are facing. Jacksonville has given up the 3rd most receptions to opposing running backs in the NFL. They have a good defensive line. They're relatively tough against the run. So we see a lot of those short, dumpy passes to the running back. And added bonus, the Saints have a really good pass-catching running back in Alvin Kamara. So the number a bit high at 30.5, but he's hit this in 2 of 3 games, and he's getting a large amount of opportunity in this offense. 8 targets last game and 14 targets against the Bucs for receiving. That is a wildly high number for a receiver. The fact that this is also a short week, less time to prepare, makes me usually think that teams rely more heavily on those running backs if they can. So I would play either that or his rushing plus receiving. We saw a similar back in Bijan Robinson combined for 137 rushing and receiving when he played the Jags. But again, Jacksonville pretty solid against the run. So maybe I'll just go receiving. Let's do that. Alvin Kamara over 30.5 receiving yards for -115.
Chelsea, another game on the slate for Sunday. It is just wild to me that the Detroit Lions are 3-point road underdogs against the Ravens. And I understand that the Ravens are at home. Obviously, you get that kind of home field advantage, tick up in the line. And I know that they looked good a week ago, but man, the Lions have been on fire and they're on the road as underdogs. What do you think about this game?
It seems like a trap, does it not? When you saw this line, you thought to yourself, okay, what am I missing here? Because you're exactly right. It feels like a team that should not be getting 3 points because they've played so well this year. Their defense has been much better this year. Jared Goff is playing at a very high level for a quarterback that most people have deemed as a guy that's only driving the car for the offense. But I think what you do here is you take the two good teams that are getting points this week and you put them in a teaser. So for Detroit, it means you get them at +9 against the Ravens. And then the other game that kind of looks trappy, but I'll take the extra points, the Dolphins going against the Eagles. The Dolphins are getting 2.5. So in a teaser, the Dolphins would be getting 8.5 points here. I think that offense can at least keep it close with the Eagles, who have looked far from dominant this year. I think that's how you play it. Those two trap games, maybe if you have a little extra wiggle room, you can win your bet. So we'll do a 2-team teaser. We'll go Detroit +9 on the road at the Ravens and the Dolphins +8.5 on the road at Philly.
I just started messing with teasers 2 weeks ago. And I always wonder, like, with the odds on those, because I think it was maybe like 5 teams with a teaser to get to the same as 3 teams without a teaser on a parlay. I don't remember. I don't know if that's exactly right, but like, what is less of a sucker thing to do? Because I'm a pretty big sucker on this stuff. Is the bigger sucker bet to just go a normal parlay of like 3 teams, or to tease like a 5 team to get to the same place?
Well, I don't think I normally do teasers that big, but there are some numbers behind teasers and showing that they can be long-term successful if you are applying them correctly. Because here's the thing about the NFL. Usually the lines are pretty sharp when it comes to the spread. So if you are playing a number, these are called Wong teasers. If you want to look it up, you can, but what they are is you are trying to go through as many key numbers as possible. So over time, these have been the ones that have been the most successful. If you take an underdog of +1.5 to +2.5, and you go through the key numbers of 3, 6, and 7, or you can take a favorite of -8.5 down to -7.5, and you go the other way, and you get that team, at only -1.5 or only -2.5. Those are the teasers that have been the most successful historically speaking. So I don't know how many teams you want to throw in your teaser, but that's kind of why I'm choosing these teams at a certain spread, because you want to go through as many key numbers as possible. That is your number one thing in teasers to remember.
Chelsea, on Sunday, the Chiefs are back at home at Arrowhead with a divisional matchup against the Chargers. The Chargers played Monday Night Football against the Cowboys, and I have to ask, when you got a team like the Chargers that it's been in the headlines and everybody talks about it week in and week out about some of these decisions that Brandon Staley makes, does it make it more difficult to bet a team like the Chargers when you've got a coach that sometimes will make wild decisions that can ultimately impact the spread or whatever picks you make?
Yeah. I think if the Chargers are under a field goal, you're not taking them on either side, even if they're getting points, and especially if they're laying points. But these type of teams, if they are getting more than a field goal, I think are a hold your nose type of play and say, okay, well, the Chargers are getting 5.5 against a team that they have covered the number against in 5 of their last 6. You've got to remember, this is a divisional game. I feel like I probably don't have to tell you guys this. You probably know that a lot of these games have been very close for the Chiefs going against the Chargers, but it feels like a hold your nose type of play, taking the Chargers this week +5.5. I think the most telling thing is the fact that this opened at 5.5, and I feel like the public would be all over Kansas City, and this number has not budged. So it feels a little, tough to take the Chargers, but I feel like that probably is the play, at least based on the trends.
Yeah, that game is fascinating, I think, but I don't even know. I don't know what to do with it. The Chiefs have been covering numbers for, the last couple of weeks, which is out of the ordinary for them. So they've kind of thrown me off a little bit too. What else in the NFL are you looking at this weekend, Chelsea?
Yeah, looking at the Bucks at home, and I will take them on the money line. Or if you want to lay the 2.5, I'm cool with that too. Playing the Falcons, we know the Falcons need to run the football in order to be successful. Tampa Bay is especially good against the run, and they've been really good in the red zone. One of the top red zone defenses in the NFL right now. In fact, they're the number one defense, allowing opponents to score touchdowns on only 23% of their trips. Meanwhile, Atlanta has been bad at converting their red zone trips, only scoring on 55% of those trips. So bottom line, the run defense for Tampa Bay is really good. Also, Atlanta, for some reason, markedly better at home. So they're playing this one on the road. I will, again, hold my nose and back Baker Mayfield and the Bucks at home here.
All right, and anything on the college slate we need to know about before we let you go?
Man, the game that I really like, but it makes me nervous because everybody is on it, the Ohio State and Penn State game. Everyone and their mom is taking Penn State. Every single person we've had on the show taking Penn State plus 4.5, because it does feel like the year. If there's any year for Penn State to compete with Ohio State, this is it. Talent-wise, I think Penn State might have the more talented squad, have one of the best offensive tackles in the entire landscape of college football. They've got a great quarterback in Drew Aller and one of the best running back rooms in all of college football. So Ohio State has been a bit underwhelming this year. I think McCord is actually the less talented of these two quarterbacks. So I think that Penn State can keep it close. But again, this may be a public dog this week because I have seen so many people on Penn State getting 4.5.
All right. Chelsea Messenger, our betting insider. We appreciate it, Chelsea. Good luck with all the bets this weekend.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Yeah, Tommy, I've been messing with these teasers. And they're interesting. They're fun.
Yeah.
But they can be frustrating too if you're way off. So like a couple of weeks ago, I did one and it hit, and I was like, "Oh, well, this is easy." And then I tried one last week, and no, I was way wrong.
I'll tell you, while she was talking, I actually made a bet on the exact teaser that she mentioned because I love that. I think that's great. So hopefully that pays off this weekend.
Yeah, it is all fun. Here's what I'm looking at, and just real quickly, and I wanted to, like, the unders have just destroyed it this year, which is agonizing. I hate it. I hate betting unders. It's nauseating, all these things. And so I'm like, well, let me go look at the 3 highest totals, take the under and tease them up and see what happens. So like if I did that, it would be Chargers, Chiefs, Dolphins, Eagles, Packers, Broncos. Move them up 6 points, right? But then take the under, and it's plus 160 if you do that. So like $25 wins $65. I might try that just in like as a scientific experiment this week.
See how well that works.
Because I hate it. I hate that all these unders keep hitting. Like I love betting overs, and it's been a really hard year to do that. So I don't know. Maybe I'll mess with that. It's usually worth waiting a couple of days to do your NFL bets. Not just because of injuries, but because that's when like all the little bonuses and all that stuff come into play there. And you can usually get some better odds boosts and stuff like that on all the different sites. All right, let's take a quick break, catch our breath a little bit, and come back with hour number 2. Here, let's start talking about Chiefs Chargers a little bit. We haven't gotten into that game at all yet. We mentioned McCole Hardman. What about Frank Clark coming back? Lots of stuff to get into with the Chiefs. We'll do that in the next hour and much more at Sports Daily on KFH.
Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Hour number 2 here of Sports Daily. We've got the NFL, Thursday Night Football, primetime NFL games from Westwood One, available live for free right here on KFH and on the Odyssey app. Tune in tonight for Thursday Night Football, Jacksonville at New Orleans. You can hear it right here on KFH or simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at kickoff. The IHOP hotline, after being full of great guests in hour number 1, is back wide open for you, brought to you by IHOP. 869-1240. Guests can enjoy the new strawberry cheesecake waffle, a golden brown Belgian waffle topped with creamy cheesecake mousse and fresh strawberries. Tommy, let's talk a little not Thursday Night Football. We can do that before the end of the show. Let's talk a little Chiefs football in the afternoon window Sunday against Kansas City. And this may bleed into some of our thoughts on Justin Herbert. We've been, sort of going back and forth on him a little bit. And we did that, whatever that day was, Tuesday, after the Chargers lost to the Cowboys. And for the sake of that argument, I thought Herbert did not play particularly well in that game individually, albeit against one of the better defenses in football. He comes into Kansas City, always plays the Chiefs close. These games are always close. I think of him as one of the top guys in the league. You're not there yet with him. By the way, that's a topic I'll bring up this weekend. I'll have a CBS Sports Radio shift. I do want to know, what do the masses think on Herbert? I think people have cooled on him to some degree, but I also think you've got a guy who in 3 years has had 3 different offensive coordinators, who's had 2 of the worst in-game managing coaches, in my opinion, we've seen in recent history. And, the injuries every year that they deal with are well noted now for the Chargers for, it seems like 20 years. But the numbers are there for Herbert and what he's done. And if you compare it to some of the all-time greats in this league, by yards, he's the highest for sure. And that's not everything. He's got a decent enough win-loss record, I think. And he's made 1 playoff appearance in 2 years, right? 1 playoff appearance in 2 years. This is his 3rd year. So it doesn't count. Or is this his 4th year?
This is his 4th year.
Yeah, this is his 4th year. You're right. Yeah. So 1 playoff appearance in 3 years. It's not all that different from many of the greats that we've seen. My thing with Herbert is just watching him. He's durable more so than a lot of the guys we would consider in this. He played with broken ribs, got into the postseason last year. They blew that game. But it sort of gets into that debate of wins are not a quarterback stat. And I absolutely am not in that camp at all. I know that's like the hipster thing to say, right? Like, oh, it's not. I'm not in that camp, but I am in the camp of quarterbacks can't do everything, right? Tony Romo was a really good quarterback with some awful defenses. That doesn't make him a bad quarterback that they were never, and I'm not saying I think Herbert's way better than Romo, by the way. It just like sometimes there are circumstances, especially in a young quarterback's career, that like how much can they do? Like he can't play defense. He can't decide whether they should go for it or kick a field goal and take points and do all those things. So it's like he's not always put in the best position either. We talked about on Tuesday the amount of, he is per games played maybe the highest on 4th quarter comeback or game-winning drives or whatever it is, game-winning drives and coming back late in games. And a part of that is because he's constantly asked to do that, right? Like he's constantly in a position to have to drive down the field and win games. He's a dangerous quarterback for the Chiefs to face, and he is going to be the top adversary, I think, when the dust settles on careers and we look back at this era of football. The great rivalry and the great, head-to-head is not going to be Burrow or Allen. It is right now. I think over time it's going to be Herbert.
The big reason why I don't believe in the quarterbacks or the wins are not a quarterback stat, the reason I don't believe in that is because quarterbacks get all the credit when they win. So
Totally.
they're going to have to get some of the blame when they lose. So that's why I don't necessarily believe in that. I do think that it's the most important position on the field. And so, they dictate the result of a game more than any other player on the field on any given week, right? The thing about Justin Herbert is that he is extremely talented, and I will absolutely give him that. The guy is athletic. He's built in a great way. He's got a great skill set. I absolutely understand why he's even in this conversation in his 4th season in the NFL as being one of the best. You said that his win-loss record was, I don't exactly remember the word that you used. I think you said it was okay. I mean, he's exactly 500. He's 27-27. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I guess that's average or mediocre or whatever you want to call it. I do think that while he can't do it all, he can't play defense, he can't make those coaching decisions. The quarterback, more than any other position on the field, impacts the result of the game, as I just said. So I do think that, if he was in a position kind of like, I mean, let's say Patrick Mahomes just played his 100th game. He's 80-20, Patrick Mahomes is, in his career as a starting quarterback. Mahomes is going to get all the credit in the world for that. If the win-loss record was different for Justin Herbert through his first handful of seasons, if they had a playoff win or multiple playoff wins, then it would be a little bit of a different story, I think, for Justin Herbert. I think he's incredibly talented, but I also have to say that the most elite quarterbacks in the NFL, both present and past, they don't need excuses made for them. Like, nobody looks at nobody looks at Tom Brady and says, yeah, he's elite. And can you imagine how much better he would have been if he actually had great receivers to throw? No, I mean, he was able to compensate for it. So Justin Herbert doesn't need excuses made for him if he wants to be considered one of the most elite quarterbacks in the league.
He doesn't need excuses. But listen, I got to tell you, Tom Brady stepped into the league with Bill Belichick. Patrick Mahomes stepped into the league with Andy Reid, right? There is a difference in stepping into the league with Anthony Lynn and then Brandon Staley and having, all the changes at offensive coordinator. Making that many changes at offensive coordinator for a young quarterback can be a death sentence, right? We've seen that time and time and time again. Zero consistency, yet his numbers have been steady all the way through all those changes.
His individual numbers have been.
Right. Which, again, like there are lots of circumstances into this equation. I think here's the reason that I think I'm not in the camp of wins are not a quarterback stat. I think that they are. I think Joe Burrow is the poster boy for that, right? The impact Joe Burrow has had on wins and losses for that team, with the same coach being there before and after Joe Burrow, by the way, and what they were in the season he got hurt versus what they are now. I think that's a great example. We don't know it as much with Kansas City, right? Kansas City was great before Mahomes ever took over, consistently winning divisions, making playoff appearances, all of those things. I think where you go against the quarter, but now they're finding the success in the postseason, right? That's what tells you, like, it does make a difference. Josh Allen, the Bills were pretty good before he took over, right? Like, and so were the Chargers, by the way. They were okay, right? They were kind of like the Bills, just kind of like good, but not good enough. You have to take circumstances, I think, into consideration when you're looking at, and this is why I would sell out to help my young quarterback if I was drafting a quarterback. It's why I can't believe that Eric Bieniemy hasn't had a head coaching job yet for one of these teams that knows it's going to draft a quarterback. You have to sell out to help your quarterback. I mean, that's like, you put everything into that.
They have got to do it that way. I mean, they
hired 2 defensive coaches.
I'm talking about the personnel on the field. I mean, they have a great wide receiver room when they can stay healthy. That's the big key.
They can't,
but they went out and they basically bought a defense. They bought a defense
and brought in 2 defensive-minded coaches, and it's been garbage.
That hasn't worked out, for them. And so, I think a lot of that, I mean, like, you can't put that on the shoulders of Justin Herbert necessarily.
Right.
I mean, that's on the coaching staff in the front office and all of that for spending all this money on these high-profile defensive players that, really, honestly, hardly any of them panned out.
And hiring 2 defensive head coaches, Anthony Lynn and Brandon Staley. Yeah. Like, when they hired Brandon Staley before we ever saw him coach a game, it's like, what? Like, what? Why would you do that if you're going behind a young quarterback? And remember the circumstances in which Justin Herbert was put on the field anyway. It was that, that brutal injury. Was it Tyrod Taylor at the time? Like, that was a tough situation. And then we saw Herbert play, and I didn't think he was going to be that kind of quarterback coming out of college. And it's just like, whoa, this guy had one of the best rookie seasons, if not the best we've ever seen.
Yeah, and
with Anthony Lynn as his head coach.
I gave you this comparison when you and I were talking about this the other day off air, that I'm not going to put him in the camp of this person right now because we just don't know.
Right.
But think about Peyton Manning, for example. Peyton Manning, the first couple of years that he was in the league, he played under Jim Mora. I mean, Jim Mora famously said in a press conference and was like, playoffs? We're not going to the playoffs. Like, it was bad for Peyton Manning the first couple of years. He lost 13 games his rookie year. He threw 28 interceptions. Then when Tony Dungy came in, that's when things started to turn around for Peyton Manning. Through the first, I think, 6 seasons of Peyton Manning's career, he didn't win a playoff game, or maybe he won one playoff game. It doesn't matter. But through the first handful of years, Manning wasn't able to take that next step. I mean, I remember the conversations through the first handful of years that Peyton Manning was in the league where people were like, is this guy ever going to get it done? Like, he's got a special kind of like physical talent and the way that he plays quarterback. And like, everybody knew it when they watched him that he was a really good quarterback from a statistical point of view, but he wasn't able to get over the hump and win when it really mattered. That's kind of where Justin Herbert is right now, where, I think you look at him and like, I think the word I used to you off air was special. People knew that Peyton Manning was special, but I don't think people considered him elite until he was able to actually go all the way.
But like, how many truly elite then quarterbacks are currently playing? I think there are clearly 3, right? Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow. But that's it, right? Like, to me, that's it anyway. Like, I wouldn't put anybody else in that camp, and I think the closest to it is Herbert. Jalen Hurts has regressed big time without his offensive coordinator this year. He hasn't played well. And so, like, I'm not ready to put anybody else there yet, but I think, in my opinion, that Herbert's the closest to it. I just imagine if...
Just based on his physical attributes, is that...
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah. Imagine just... And I try to, like, because there are no equalizers, right? Like, yeah, you could say put Justin Herbert, in Kansas City, and would he have more success? Well, of course he would. But like, think of it even this way. And getting Kellen Moore in there, if they maintain Kellen Moore when they inevitably fire Brandon Staley, that will probably help. But imagine if John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin, right, or Mike Vrabel, like, imagine if one of those guys were his head coach. And those are 3 defensive coaches, by the way, instead of Anthony Lynn or Brandon Staley. You think the Chargers would have more wins? Of course they would. What if Herbert played the exact same? If one of those 3 guys was their head coach, they would have more wins. The Chargers have had some of the worst coaching we've seen in football over the past few years. They're wasting away what we all feel like is a pretty talented team, right? Keenan Allen is a monster, and he's getting old. Mike Williams has never been able to stay healthy. So it just like, no. Yeah, I mean, yes, wins are a quarterback stat to some degree. But they're also a coaching stat, right? And they're also, there's a lot of factors that go into that. And I think if you just like think of it as plant X quarterback into like whatever situation, if they're in any other particular situation, would they be more successful? And I think all the time you can say, well, yes, they would be. And I think he's a prime candidate.
And this is the difficult thing too, because I'm trying to think of quarterbacks, like who's the best quarterback in the history of the NFL that had a terrible coach, like for a long time. And I have a hard time thinking about that, because when quarterbacks have success, that means the head coach is going to have success. And when a quarterback is, doing special things out on the field, like, man, like think of like, gosh, I don't know, Brett Favre and Mike Holmgren, or
I mean, Marino had Shula. They never won a title.
But that's not bad coaching necessarily. I'm just trying to think of like, is there an all-time great quarterback that had a bad coach? And I'm not sure that that's really the case. But then again, I'm not sure if that is if that's
some
correlated.
People would say Aaron Rodgers probably. Some people would say
McCarthy?
The Packers were successable despite McCarthy, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. By the way, I don't.
Elway had Dan Reeves, and gosh, I mean, of course, Mahomes and Andy Reid, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. But again, like, Marino didn't get one, and we're not going to question how great he was. He's one of the
Jim
greatest.
Kelly? Would Jim Kelly be someone that we would look at as being a great quarterback with not a great coaching staff? I don't know.
No, because I think Marv Levy would be up there in coaches. Like I don't know the answer to that. Phillip Rivers, maybe. He had Schottenheimer for a little bit. Which was just not, and then who did he have after Who did
He
he
had
have
Norv
after Sean
Turner
Payton?
for a number of years. Was the coach of the Chargers.
Yeah.
I mean, Drew Brees had Sean Payton. Like all the greats that you look at.
Well, there's an example. Look at
maybe Eli
Sean
Manning
Payton
potentially.
Yeah, we had Bill Parcells. I probably the Chargers. Phillip Rivers had Schottenheimer for a little bit, and then he had Norv Turner, and then Mike McCoy. Maybe Rivers is the guy that's borderline Hall of Famer. You could put Tony Romo in there. Whatever you think about Jason Garrett. I mean, Wade Phillips, a guy I love to death, was not ultimately a great head coach. He had some good years in a couple different places, but it's just like it's a combination of things, and where you land matters immensely. Look at a guy like Brock Purdy right now. Sometimes you find the perfect fit, and they did. The 49ers found the perfect fit between Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. They clearly did. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes was a perfect fit. Andy Reid couldn't get it done with Alex Smith. Can now. So it takes more into that than just to say, because this is why, this is why this comes up. It's because people, like anytime that the Chargers struggle, everyone's like, oh, see, Herbert's so overrated. And I'm like, no, he's appropriately rated. This dude's really good. Like they're not winning these games, but it's not because Herbert sucks. It's just not. Like he's good. Like he's a good quarterback. We'll see. I think when the dust settles on this, when we look back at great rivalries, it's going to be Mahomes Herbert. When we look back and say that's the great rivalry of the Mahomes era, I think it's going to be there even more than Allen and Burrow. Now, if we keep getting those matchups in the postseason, maybe that changes, and we definitely could because those guys are obviously great. But I have him on the cusp of and on the path to being in that same conversation. And it brings us to Sunday against the Chiefs. The Chargers have got to have that game. I mean, if you're the Chargers, you have to have it. And I just don't have any confidence in their decision-making on the sidelines to, like, how could you take the Chargers to win it when you know it's Brandon Staley making the decisions versus Andy Reid?
Well, and look, the other thing, too, is that I think that Justin Herbert is a victim of the continuous year in and year out hype around the Chargers over the last couple of years. And Dan Israel mentioned that on Tuesday when he was on the program about how the Chargers are always picked to win it all. It seems like every single year before the year starts, and then they underperform, they underdeliver after everything is overpromised. And so I think that that's part of it too, kind of a victim of expectations a little bit. And so, if Herbert had the opportunity to grow without having the hype of being in LA and all of those other things where people think that, year in and year out, they're going to win it all and then they don't, it might be a little bit of a different situation. I feel for him in that regard, that there's been this expectation when you look at him and you watch him play and you're like, man, that guy is really talented. And I believe he is really talented. They should be winning more than what they are. And that blame is put on his shoulders. I think in the same kind of way that it's put on Brandon Staley, but Brandon Staley is absolutely more to blame in that.
It is, because the defense that they've invested so much in is not good. And they continuously make bad decisions late in the games. And you can get out your pocket protector and your analytics sheet all you want and tell me that, it's actually the right thing to do there because, XYZ. No, they're not winning games. It's obviously not the right thing to do there because it never succeeds. Like if it succeeded maybe sometimes late in the game to do it this way, okay. But when we're watching it constantly not work, it's not the right decision. It may be statistically the right thing to do to go for it, but that does not take into account the fact that the person calling the play to get you the yards isn't going to call the right play, isn't going to do the right thing.
That's where
left guard.
Yeah, that's where analytics
your left
stops,
guard
right?
doesn't block the defense. That's what drives me so crazy about it. Yeah, everybody knows that you have the opportunity to score more points if you're constantly going for it on fourth down. That's not hard to comprehend. But what analytics doesn't comprehend is execution to get there, both in play call, in players, like all of the things still have to be actually played on the field for it to work. That's why you see some of the great coaches understand, like, live to fight another day. Let's put ourselves in a better position the next time, and we'll give ourselves a better chance to win. That's what it doesn't take into consideration, and it drives me insane.
It's part of the reason why Chiefs fans pull their hair out every time on 4th and 1, and the Chiefs offense is, I mean, they're going to run a reverse or a trick play or something like that, because the analytics may say it's going to be better to go for it on 4th and 1, but the analytics are also not saying, okay,
Run
go
backwards.
Yeah, do this play on 4th and 1.
Right.
They're just going to say go for it on 4th and 1. So, I mean, that's kind of where the analytics, it stops right there. And I agree with you. I mean, when you do have somebody like Brandon Staley who, can't call the right play and the players can't execute it in the right way, then that also has to play into the decision as well.
Look, the Chiefs analytically on 4th and 1 are not as adept as the Eagles on 4th and 1 because they don't want Patrick Mahomes to sneak it up the middle, whereas the Eagles will do that every time. So that in that sense, 4th and 1 starts to make more sense for the Eagles than it does the Chiefs. There is nuance in it that computers don't take into consideration. And so when Brandon Staley just blindly goes for it every time, how about you look and see what your own rate of conversion is on 4th down and play that in? If you never make it on 4th down, it's not worth it. And especially at the end of a game. Like, come on now. And that's not Justin Herbert's fault. Like, that's the Chargers continuously being inept. It's their fault. Like, go get a coach that knows what the hell they're doing, and they would be a much better team. Can they beat the Chiefs on Sunday? That's what we'll talk about next. We got that off our chest. What about the game itself this weekend? We'll do it next on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. We've been so busy on this Thursday that, we haven't given anything away. Let's do it now. Let's do it at the start of the segment here. Let's give away some HTO first, Jad. We'll do a free iced tea and a free HTO Brewhouse coffee drink. More than 25 flavors of iced tea, including some new fall favorites, apple pie and peach cobbler. The brew house also has apple pie and peach cobbler varieties of the coffee. So iced tea coffee, check it out now. One of each, Wichita East, West, and in Derby. The coffee only available in Derby and at Wichita East. 869-1240 to that IHOP hotline. We'll catch one winner there, and then we'll give away some Wichita Thunder hockey tickets as well before the end of the show. So good luck, everybody, on that IHOP hotline to get in there. All right, Tommy, let's talk Chiefs this weekend at Chargers. We just talked about the Justin Herbert, conundrum that we've been mulling around off the air a little bit this week. Let's talk about the game on Sunday. Historically close. The Chargers are desperate. The Chiefs, I think, with a win here, would reestablish themselves at the top of the AFC. Maybe some people would still have the Dolphins higher, but I think if the Chiefs can, cover this number or even just get a win, I think you feel the best about them strictly because I don't think anybody out there thinks we're seeing the best Chiefs football we're going to see this year right now, right? Like we still haven't seen that. It's coming, I think, but we still haven't seen it. And they're 5-1.
Well, reinforcements are on their way with McCole Hardman. If Frank Clark ends up signing with the Chiefs, he'll be a reinforcement. And don't forget, Charles Omenihu will be able to play in the game this Sunday. And, he was a guy that I know defensively, Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo were really excited about as being an immediate impact player defensively for Kansas City. Had to sit out the first 6 games of the year. He's back now. So reinforcements are coming. That being said, the line right now is at 5.5. And man, historically, the Chiefs and the Chargers, they play close every single time. They play closer than 5.5. And so I'm a little bit surprised by that number. I don't know exactly which way I'm leaning right now. We'll pick it tomorrow, but that's an interesting line considering historically how close these two teams play each other.
Yeah, I don't, there isn't a betting angle I'm loving either way. 48 is the over under. Kind of hard to get the Chiefs under 50 most of the time, and the way the unders have been playing and the way the Chiefs defense has been playing, and knowing that even though the Chargers defense has struggled, they still have Mack and Bosa out there. I just don't have a good feel on the bet. I really don't have a good feel on the game. the Chiefs are at home. I think the Chiefs are going to win, but the Chargers are desperate. And they can still come at you with Keenan Allen and Eckler and know they haven't really had anybody step up. Mike Williams is, if I remember correctly, has been a problem for the Chiefs historically too.
Well, he's out.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And he's not there. And Quentin Johnston's not there yet, the TCU star who is just more slowly acclimating than I think some people thought. So I do sort of like things for the Chiefs defense to some degree, but I don't know. It's going to be tough.
It seems to me that for the Chargers, this might end up being a Joshua Palmer type game. without them having Mike Williams and Quentin Johnston really not doing a whole lot to get started in his career. I think the Chiefs secondary, McDuffie, Snead, I think they're going to be able to really, you would think, clamp down on Keenan Allen, which may mean that Joshua Palmer may be the guy that I'm going to be looking at as far as player props are concerned for the Chargers. Eckler didn't have a good game on Monday Night Football, but of course he's going up against the Cowboys defense, who did a really good job limiting him. So, I don't know how that correlates to the game on Sunday if the Chiefs defensively can stop the run in the way that the Cowboys did. I would imagine we'll see probably better stats from Eckler against the Chiefs than against the Cowboys, but I still don't know if it's going to be like a big time game from Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes into more of what can the Chargers defense do here. Mahomes is off to a much slower start than we're accustomed to. Now, again, this is by his own standard, right? Not anything else. Like he's still fine, but it has been, like, if we look at, just the numbers versus himself, this has been what would we call it, an off year for him. I mean, he's made some mistakes that he wouldn't typically make. I think that's probably fair. Can the Chargers do something to make him uncomfortable? Well, they to start with Mack and Bosa is a good place to start, right, in order to do that. And knowing that the Chiefs receivers right now still don't seem capable of allowing Mahomes to push it down the field or anything, and if they're not as adept on the scramble drills yet as they might be, I'll tell you this, I love Rashee Rice in this game. If I'm attacking it from a betting perspective, it's probably toward Rashee Rice, because I do think Mahomes is going to have to scramble a ton. It's probably a decent Kelsey game for that same reason, right? Like, who are the guys that Mahomes is going to lean into if he's got to get outside the pocket and move around? Because it's almost certainly going to happen with Mack and Bosa. Maybe you look at those two guys, and maybe this is the opportunity for Rice to really step up and say, hey, I am that guy. Like, I am the guy you should look for when you're running around doing your Mahomes magic type stuff. Look for me. And maybe this could be a coming out party. I do like him in this game quite a bit.
Well, and what other option do they have outside of Travis Kelce? I mean, nobody else is really raising their hand. It's not going to be MVS, probably not going to be Sky Moore. Justin Watson is out. It's probably going to take a little bit of time for McCole Hardman to get, re-ramped up into the offense. I think that's a pretty solid idea that, if anybody has the chance to step forward, it's probably going to be Rashee Rice.
It is. So I'm looking at, depending on, metrics or how do you evaluate quarterbacks. So by the traditional older quarterback rating, Mahomes right now sits 9th in the league, Herbert 5th. And then if you go to ESPN's QBR, and don't ask me what the difference here is because I don't know, Mahomes is 5th and Herbert's 6th. But Mahomes normally is at the top of all of these things, and he's not. So, if you're the Chargers, that's what you got to look at. Like, the Chiefs are, like, that's what's so strange about the Chiefs this year. They're not a wounded animal. They're just not what they always are and probably will be later in this season, right now in this moment. Can you take advantage if you're the Chargers, desperate for a win here? Look, if the Chargers don't win this game, they pretty much have no chance to win the division if everything holds through injury-wise. No chance. If they do, okay. Like, maybe you've got a shot here, right? If you're the Chargers, at least you can sell it that way to your team. Look, if they're able to beat the Chiefs here, they're one game behind them in the standings. Chiefs would be 5-2. The Chargers are 3-3 with the win there. I mean, it is a desperation moment for the Chargers, not just for that reason, but if you lose the game, Tommy, if you lose this game, you fall to 2-4 and the Chiefs move to 6-1. What are the chances that the Chiefs have 4 losses by the end of the year?
I don't think that if the Chiefs win this game, I don't see any particular path that the Chargers can come back from that. That's why it's a must win for the Chargers to keep pace. I mean, let's be honest. Talent-wise, only talent. I'm not even talking about coaching, anything like that. Talent-wise, they're better than Denver. They're better than Vegas. They're better than both of those teams. And so really you're competing against Kansas City. And so in a divisional matchup like this, if the Chargers don't get this win, you've got all this talent on the team, and they've fallen behind to a point to where I think it's going to be next to impossible for them to catch up.
Yeah, it will be next to impossible because you just have to again, are the Chiefs going to lose 4 games this year in total? Maybe, but are the Chargers then at that point going to win every single one of the rest of the games that they play? No, they're
Doubtful.
not. So that's where you have to look at it, right? Maybe the Chiefs even lose 5 games, but then the Chargers can only lose 1 more the rest of the way. That's not going to happen. So it is desperation, like big time, as desperate to a division, to a divisional championship as you could have for the Chargers comes on Sunday. And I do think that desperation is dangerous for the Chiefs. I do think the fact that Justin Herbert did not, perform up to his own standard against the Cowboys and miss some throws is dangerous, right? A wounded animal. I think that could be a factor this weekend.
The other thing too,
it's a concerning game.
It would not surprise me if the Chargers lose this game, if they lose it in a way that is disappointing to them. I mean, any loss is going to be disappointing, but like if they get throttled, or if there's another decision at the end of the game that costs them, it may be the last game that Brandon Staley coaches as the Chargers. He may be the very first one that loses his job this season after the game on Sunday. I don't know. I do think that there is a little bit of job security in this game too, and if they can go on the road to Arrowhead and get a win, that's going to cool off, I think, Brandon Staley's seat pretty considerably.
I don't know, man. The guy, if nothing else, he's convicted in his beliefs. He could lose every game and be like, yeah, we're still making the right decisions.
But I'm not sure that they're going to give him that kind of rope to be able to, to be able to do that.
He got the rope this year. And then you had one of the biggest playoff collapses of all time and still got it. I mean, it's like, is Jerry Jones running the Chargers right now with some of these coaching loyalty things that are going on there? Like, it's clearly not going to work. And I know people love Brandon Staley, and he may be like his attitude and all that stuff. But if you can't correct clear mistakes, then what are we doing here? Like, it's not working, dude. Like, it's not. And he's just going to keep doing it. So it's like, okay, well, at some point you gotta make a change. I love that game though. I'm excited about that game, as excited as I've been about any Chiefs game this season. And I think there's a lot of little things within the game that will make that pretty fascinating to watch play out. All right, Tommy, let's give away some Thunder tickets before we take a break and come back, maybe talk a little Major League Baseball as we're in the championship series of both the American and National League. So what have we got coming for the Thunder?
Yeah, we're getting ramped up tomorrow night. The Wichita Thunder home opener, Intrust Bank Arena, 7:00, taking on the Kansas City Mavericks. We're looking forward to it. Hockey season is back in Wichita, and we've got a family 4-pack of tickets to the game tomorrow night, and we want to give away to you right now.
All right, let's do that. That 4-pack available to our second caller during the break here on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Jad will get us a winner. We'll come back. We'll talk a little playoff baseball next. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here. Congratulations to Shannon for winning our Thunder tickets. Congratulations to Ted for winning our HTO Iced Tea and Brew House options. Way to go, everybody. We'll continue to do that here. We'll try to give stuff away every day, or at least as much as we can here on Sports Daily. All right, let's talk a little baseball here, Tommy. We got two games, both championship series in action today. The National League gets the afternoon window today. The American League gets the nighttime window again today. So let's start in the National League. Does it feel right now like the Diamondbacks have any chance to win this series?
No, no.
Yeah,
I don't think they
so
have any
either.
chance to win. I think that I don't think they're going to get swept, but man, the Phillies are so hot right now. There's no stopping them. The lineup is ridiculous. The way that they're hitting is incredible. I just don't see anybody getting in their way right now. And it's going to be, I mean, honestly, whether it's the Rangers or the Astros, either team is going to have their hands full with the Phillies in the World Series.
Yeah, for sure. But I think the difference is down 2-0. There's not anyone that thought, oh, the Astros have no chance here, right?
Right.
My Rangers were up 2-0, and I'm terrified. right? And maybe it would be the same as if the Diamondbacks were up 2-0 on the Phillies. I don't know, but two very different dynamics in the series because the Astros, I don't think, are ever out of it until they're dead. The Phillies would be the same way, but the Diamondbacks aren't that way. At least we don't perceive them that way. So I'm with you there. And, not trying to be hyperbolic or anything, but I kind of just feel like at this point they got no chance. Meanwhile, on the other side, Rangers Astros. Boy, this thing screams to me like 7 games here. And I hope not. I hope not. But the Astros are the Astros. I don't know that I can remember a more daunting batter in the postseason than Yordan Alvarez. Like, you just can't pitch to him. He looks like he's going to hit a home run every time he's up. And he almost does every time he's up.
It's probably him or Bryce Harper. Probably are the two that you
I think I'd rather pitch to Harper. Really? I think I'd rather pitch to Harper than like Yordan Alvarez is hitting everything. Now, Jordan Montgomery did a phenomenal job on him in the first game. Like, I've never seen Alvarez look as confused as he did in game 1. And since then, it's just like everything is to the warning track or gone, it feels like. And
didn't he say that he was so fooled by Montgomery's curveball, I think, because it looks like a fastball?
Well, he was. It was falling out. Like, he clearly was fooled by it. But if you miss at all, like, he's parking it. And that's why I get so frustrated right now with the Rangers. Like, I made the joke, like, everyone was laughing at me because I'm like screaming in the newsroom, like, you can't walk Tucker. Like, you can't, like, whatever. Like, you can't put guys on last night. You can't walk Bregman to bring up Alvarez. Like, what are we doing here? Like, give him meatballs. Do not put somebody on for Yordan Alvarez. Make it so that when he hits that home run, it's a solo shot and it doesn't kill you, because it's probably going to happen at this point. He's just out of this world. He's so good.
I'm going to tell you right now, and you're not going to like to hear it. I don't know if you believe this or not. If this series goes to 7 games, advantage Astros. The Astros win the series. If
They've
it
been
goes
terrible
to 7
at
games.
home. They've been terrible at home the last 2 postseasons.
They've been there. They've got the postseason experience. If they can, being down 2-0, if they can get the game to 7, they get the series to 7 games, advantage Astros big time.
Here's what I'm banking on for the Rangers. And again, like, I am terrified right now. But that's probably just, it's not like based in reality as much as we've seen this time and time again. One of the great clutch postseason hitters of this generation is Corey Seager. And he hasn't done anything yet in this series. And I kept in the very back of my head last night, like, oh man, what if Seager gets up here with a couple guys on? Like, this is Corey Seager. Like, he's done this before. He's a World Series MVP. I think that what casual fans aren't realizing with the Rangers is they're getting nothing out of the top of their lineup. Like, nothing. Semien, Seager, and whoever it is they're batting third, other than the grand slam by Mitch Garver in that individual game, like, they're not getting anything out of the top end of their all-star studded lineup. It's all coming from the bottom of the lineup. 2 home runs last night from Josh Young, the rookie. Like, it's all coming down there. At some point, hopefully in the next however many games it takes, if the top of their lineup could do something, they're just as dangerous as the Astros. Like, top to bottom, their lineup is just as good as the Astros. They're just getting nothing right now from their all-stars at the top.
It's why I think that they've got to put the Astros down as soon as possible. You can't, if you're the Rangers, you can't let this series go to 7 games or really even 6 games. I think that you've got to win tonight. Of course, you're at home, right? So that's got to help, but you got to win tonight. You got to win game 5. You got to get them out early, because as soon as you give the Astros that little bit of hope that they can get back in the series with their experience and that lineup, I think it's pretty dangerous to let them hang around like this.
The Astros always have that hope, though. The Rangers have been phenomenal on the road. The Astros have been not very good at home. And again, game 6 and 7 probably would be Montgomery and Eovaldi again. That's why I don't think there's much carryover. Like, the same things that are existing in the NLCS, like the Diamondbacks have to win tonight. Like, all of those type things, which I'm on board with. I don't think they exist in this Rangers-Astros series. I do think it's like individual games and individual matchup-based stuff. Keep in mind, the Rangers bullpen almost fell apart in each of their first 2 wins in this series too. Like, the Rangers need to be more concerned about trying to put up 8-9 runs as they do anything else, because that's where, like, the 2 wins that they do have were thin ice type of wins. And really last night, it was relatively comfortable, but the Astros never could put that game away either. And I think both of these 2 teams are just going to kind of keep doing that. Like, what's happening in the NLCS, I don't think is going to start happening in the ALCS, where you've got dominant wins one way or the other.
I mean, you're right that the Astros always feel like they have hope, but man, if it's a 3-1 Rangers lead after tonight, that hope gets really, really, really small. Because
it does,
I mean, the Astros would have to win 3 in a row.
Well, and they'll have to beat both Montgomery and Eovaldi, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got to beat both of those guys in that scenario. If you can tie the series, there's a potential that you don't have to do that. So that's where it gets a little more daunting, I think, for Houston. But Texas has got to be able to, they got to be able to get there too. I don't know. It's the late game. It should be fun. I'm a wreck right now. Like, I can't concentrate or focus on anything else. I forget how it is to be a postseason baseball fan. Royals, hopefully it's there for you too, Royals fans, very soon. 869-1240. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on tap today. Next.
Kevin Kugler here from Westwood One. Join Mike Mayock and me this week for Thursday Night Football from New Orleans, when the 3-3 Saints host the 4-2 Jaguars. Jacksonville is looking for their first ever win at the Superdome and hoping quarterback Trevor Lawrence will be back and healthy after last week's knee injury. Don't miss any of the action of the Jags at the Saints on Thursday Night Football.
Get ready for the game with more details and preview at westwoodonesports.com.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Hey, in New York, right now I'm looking at all of the unders for Jets offensive numbers. Passing yards, touchdowns, receiving yards. I'm looking at all the unders in New York. So visit FanDuel.com/win and kick off the NFL season. That's FanDuel.com/win, FanDuel.com/win. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
21 plus in President, Kansas. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Keep your water heater heating. Stop your faucet from leaking. Just call out the pros at David Lease Plumbing.
As the temperatures drop, the strain on your water heater rises. Call David Lease Plumbing at 945-0117 when you need your water heater serviced or replaced. Cold weather always has adverse effects on water heaters. Call before you have a water heater emergency at 945-0117.
Let David Lease Plumbing give your plumbing a new lease on life.
Come and enjoy a free birthday boil at Hook and Reel. Valid only with minimum of a 2 entree purchase, proof of ID, and also valid 3 days before and 3 days after birthday. Located in Town East Parking Lot, East Kellogg.
When people have a craving to explore new and traditional Asian cuisines, they head to P.F. Chang's, where scratch-made dishes come from the 2,000-year-old tradition of wok cooking. P.F. Chang's wanted to explore new possibilities for their website. They turned to AmericanEagle.com. AmericanEagle.com re-architected P.F. Chang's website, integrating multiple third-party systems to create a unified digital experience. The results? Improved page speed and performance, personalized content based on users' location, intuitive online ordering, an increase in organic search visibility, and a 40% increase in new users. For scratch-made Asian cuisine, visit your local P.F. Chang's or go to pfchangs.com for website design, development, digital marketing, and hosting that produce efficiency, revenue, and results. Visit AmericanEagle.com. P.F. Chang's and AmericanEagle.com. Another example of the best businesses in the world, turning to the best in the business for websites. Go to AmericanEagle.com or call 877-WEB-NOW1. That's 877-WEB-NOW1.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Pro football. Hey, the Kansas City Chiefs are getting the band back together. The Chiefs have traded a 6th-round draft pick in 2025 to the New York Jets in exchange for a guy that helped them win a couple of Super Bowls. Wide receiver Mecole Hardman, who has 2 Super Bowl rings with the Chiefs in recent years. In the offseason, Hardman signed a 1-year, $4 million deal with the New York Jets, but he's only played 28 snaps all season. So the Chiefs said, well, you won't play him, we will. So the Chiefs have Mecole Hardman back at wide receiver, and all they had to give up was a 6th-round draft pick in 2025 to get him. And the Chiefs also got a draft pick from the Jets as well in future years. Mecole Hardman back with the Chiefs. High school football tonight downtown at Riverfront Stadium in the regular season finale. It's Buhler taking on McPherson. McPherson has won 3 of 4. Buhler is on a 6-game winning streak right now, heading into the regular season finale. Buhler, McPherson tonight downtown at Riverfront Stadium for high school football action. I'm Ted, the Sports Head.
Bill Belichick and the Pats lost 34-zip at home to the Saints. And it's not just 34-zip at home to the Saints. It's the week after the biggest loss of his career. I'm not going to say Belichick has lost the Patriots, but I will say this is exactly what it looks like when a coach loses a team. When asked what he's going to do about it, he mumbled something about, quote, starting over. You could try to start over with these dudes, but these dudes clearly are not good enough, and you're the one who picked them.
Jim Rome, middays from 11 until 2 on 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Bob and Tom Mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, that's it for us today here on Sports Daily. Glad to be with you. We'll be back tomorrow. Fridays are always wild and crazy. We'll bring in Paul Savage for some picks. We will have some high school football talk. We will be joined by the voice of the K-State Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson. Jim Rome, 11 to 2. Bob and Jeff take you till 4. And don't forget, you've got Thursday Night Football, Jags, New Orleans, right here, 6:30 on KFH. Congratulations to our winners. Thanks to Tim Fitzgerald and Chelsea Messenger. Tommy and I will be back tomorrow. Jad Chambers producing. Get your IHOP hotline ready. Put it on the speed dial and give us a shout tomorrow. You'll have chances to win some more prizes. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Sports, lighter news, and